follow the path. The Bears Grove is adult-level discussion of role-playing as a storytelling art at samchupmedia.com. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Bears Grove podcast. We are on episode 11, and that's a lucky number, I guess. I don't know. At any rate, I'm wanting to talk today about a responsibility that everybody has. A responsibility to be a good introducer of role-playing to anyone that you're introducing role-playing to. And there's a couple of key things that I want you to take away, that I want you to remember when you are introducing people to role-playing games, TTRPGs. The first of which is be mindful that as children, most people had their creative side or their playful side kind of beaten out of them. Sometimes literally, but sometimes figuratively by the school complex or whatever you want to call it, however you want to say that it happened. Adults get to a point where they aren't really good at playing make-believe anymore. And this is what I feel blocks a lot of people from playing TTRPGs because, they're completely embarrassed about regressing a little bit and showing their creative / make-believe nature. But I'm here to tell you that the capacity for the human mind to create a what-if scenario is one of the most important aspects of the brain. The ability to put yourself in a scenario that is not real, but that is something you can look at, you can feel, you can almost touch, is what allowed us to create beautiful works of art, yes, but also architecture, mathematics, science, everything, okay? So it's a vital part of our brain. It's our birthright as human beings. There is no reason why it should be blocked, okay? So my question to you is, are you going to be one of those people who helps others get back to that space in their minds? And I hate to put this all on you. I do. I can promise you, though, that I'm working alongside you, that I'm trying to help others get to that place. And if we all work together, all will be well. Because I can tell you right now that if an adult learns to role play, their kids are probably going to grow up. If they have any kids, their kids are going to grow up learning to role play. And with all the things that role playing gets you, which is considerable, not to mention, in some cases math facts, but also things like, creative problem solving, critical thinking, deductive reasoning, things that are really useful items even in the real world, okay? But we first have to get over the hump that is the blockage that takes place at the critical consciousness level. And that blockage comes from culture, society. your mom, your dad, honey, why don't you just grow up, is a frequently said thing. Why don't you stop playing all these games, grow up and get a real job? Well, I'm here to tell you that every real job I've ever had, has used the things I learned in TTRPGs. Okay? All right. Enough preaching to the choir, because you must be the choir because you're listening to this. What I'm trying to say, what my point, and I do have one, is that I want you to help these people get over the hump, get out of their shell, and be able to touch this creative impulse that's inside of them. And you can do that. But the best way to do that is not to let them watch Critical Role. Why is that? I am not running down Critical Role. I think Critical Role is awesome. I think any actual play podcast is awesome. But I am here to tell you that a new person who's never played before is going to look at Critical Role and say, oh my God, I could never do that. That is something only professionals can do. If I can't come up with a cute voice, if I can't stay in character the entire time, then I'm not going to be worth anything at the gaming table. And that's just so wrong. The truth is, a lot of people play TTRPGs and they end up playing themselves with their own voice. And that's okay. That's okay. Because that's what you have to do. And if that's all you do, ever, if that's all you bring to the table is who you are and your own voice, then that's perfectly okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay? So, don't sit there and watch Critical Role or the other game shows and say, hey, I could never do that. Because you can do it, first of all. Second of all, if you want to learn how to do voices, you can learn how, if that's important to you. But it's not a requirement. Okay? Another thing that's not a requirement is that you know the rules. I've had so many people say, well, I've got to buy the rule book and I've got to learn all the rules and I've got to, I have to have dice and all that. No, you don't. You don't have to know all the rules and you don't have to have dice. There are plenty of ways to get around that, especially if you have a smartphone. But the rules are important to a certain extent, but if you're playing with a group of people who are going to hold your feet to the fire if for some reason you don't know a rule, then you're playing with the wrong group of people, period. There are folks out there who are sticklers, and I don't agree. I don't really think you should play with them. I don't agree with that. Let them go and have their own little cliques. But that's not for you. That's not for you. That's not for anybody who really just wants to have fun. Okay? Now, there are plenty of people out there who love rules. They love to talk about rules. That's what they do all day. Great. Good for you. But I'm not talking to you because I'm talking to people who are never played before or who are trying to help people who've never played before. Okay? Also, you don't have to dress up for a game. You don't have to have a fancy character drawing for your game. You don't have to even purchase an account on D&D Beyond or whatever. Because if you're playing with somebody, they'll have a way to invite you so you can get your own access to characters or whatever you want to do. That's not important. The important thing is, number one, that you are wanting to play and that you're willing to go in that space. And number two, that you try to engage yourself with the story, that you try to listen to what's going on, that you put a little bit of effort into that. And that's it. That's all I'm asking for you to do as a person who's playing a game. Okay? Just try. Also, I've had many times people say to me, well, I'd just be too embarrassed. And this is that negative self-talk that happens. Okay? This is that I could never be good enough, or this is that it's really ridiculous for me as an adult to be playing this way. And I'm here to tell you, please no, that's not it. Work around that. Think about what you might need for that to work. A couple of strategies you can use. Number one, ask the GM for a no bystanders rule. It's hard for adults to do this sometimes. And so when you go into a gaming situation, you're kind of vulnerable because you're asking yourself almost to go back in time. And you're asking yourself to unlimber that creative part of yourself. And if there is a person there who is not part of the game, who has no skin in the game, as it were, but they're listening, they're partaking only by being an observer, then you might start to feel like you're on stage, and that's not how we want you to feel. Or you might feel self-conscious about the fact that, someone may be judging you about how you're playing or what you're saying or what you're doing. There are so many people out there who are really into TTRPGs, and what they do is that they get into character, like an actor gets into character, and they, go the whole 9 yards to play really like the way they want to play. I'm telling you that you don't need to do that. You don't need to make yourself into a different person. Play yourself. If you have to, instead of saying, I do something in the game, say, Bridget will go and look at the marketplace to see if there's any pottery on sale. Okay? Bridget is going to sneak up behind the guy and see if Bridget can slip the hidden dagger into the fellow's back pocket. Okay? Bridget is going to do this. Bridget is going to do that. That is your way of sort of tricking your brain into saying, okay, it's not me, it's something else. It's somebody else that I'm talking about. And when you do that, what you're doing is giving yourself an out. So don't worry about, whether you have to somehow create a character that is going to be something all-encompassing. If you have to, create a character who is you. If you have 3 siblings, your character has 3 siblings. If you work in a warehouse, your character comes from a warehouse. If you are a mechanic, your character is a mechanic. Okay? Make it familiar. Make it something that you know, that you feel comfortable with. and hand all that to the GM and let the GM make you comfortable in the role. Okay? The GM can do things, can take the rules. The GM knows the rules. You know, the GM can take the rules and make a character that is you. And that's not a problem. So I just encourage you to do whatever you can to get into the game, enjoy it, find out what it is that everybody else likes about it. And it may be that, you know, it's just not for you. And that's okay. Nothing wrong with it. But what's important here is that you try. And what's important to the gamer in your life is that you try. And that you give it a fair shot. Now, the last thing I want to say, I'm out of time. The last thing I want to say, though, is that people run games differently. And if you've tried D&D in the past, or a TTRPG of any kind in the past, and you didn't like it because you didn't like how the game was run, or you didn't like that group of people, I'm begging you to please consider another try with a different group of people, a different person, because you just had a bad experience. It's only one bad experience. It shouldn't represent the entire hobby. Okay? All right. Well, that's all my preaching for today. I apologize. I got passionate to a certain extent, but at the same time, I'm glad I got passionate. I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope that your wants and your likes and your needs are all balanced as best you can. And please, when you get sleep tonight, have sweet dreams when you get them. Bye-bye.